Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's March 30th, 2017. 10 days ago, the big news story, the passing of David Rockefeller, the industrial banker giant, passing at the age of 101. If you missed the work I did on the death of David Rockefeller, I will link it below in a playlist in the description. The top video is the first video I've made that's gone viral. The most views out of all videos I've made to date, so thank you everyone who has watched. If you have time, please watch at least these top 3 videos. They're all mind-blowing. This information, what I'm about to present today, might be the most important yet. We're going to talk about the death of Richard Rockefeller, who died after flying from David Rockefeller's 99th birthday party, which was celebrated June 12th, 2014. The next day, he was flying home and his plane crashed, a fatal accident, as reported. As I showed with David Rockefeller, he died on a very specific date, a date that was very relevant to his name, his legacy, and more. I'm going to show you the same thing with the death of Richard Rockefeller. The day this man passed, June 13th, 2014, was the perfect date for him to pass, and seemingly his death from the plane crash was coordinated with the death of David Rockefeller, which we just learned about 10 days earlier. We're also going to tie in both of these deaths, Richard and David Rockefeller, with the founder of the family in terms of being the industrial giant they are. That was John D. Rockefeller, who passed May 23rd, once upon a time. So Richard Gilder Rockefeller, born January 20th, 1949, dead at the age of 65 on June 13th, 2014, the day after flying home from David Rockefeller's 99th birthday party. The date he died, interesting numerology, date with 33. We talked a lot about 33 in the earlier videos we did on the Rockefellers. From his 65th birthday to the date his plane crashed was 144 days. If you're new to my channel, 144 has a lot to do with time and death. And from his death to David Rockefeller's death was 144 weeks and 3 days later, or also a span of 144 weeks and 4 days. Richard Rockefeller passed at the age of 65. The name Rockefeller in itself has gematria of 65. Anyhow, him dying 144 days after his 65th birthday, the word time has connection to 144. The word killer, time, the most certain killer in this world. We often talk about how Saturn, the planet, is the keeper of time. Saturn is represented by 93. We'll talk more about these numbers in just a moment. But anyhow, Richard Rockefeller, who died in the plane crash at 65, died right after David Rockefeller's 99th birthday. And notice the name Richard Rockefeller sums to 99. 99. Dead after the 99th birthday. R, in the alphabetic order, is the 18th letter. 18 has a numerology of 9. 1 plus 8 equals 9. So his initials RR are also 99, in addition to his name gematria. Remember the significance of this number to this nation. The United States of America, 99. When you write out 13, it sums to 99. Think about 13 colonies, 13 stripes on the flag, 13 years of public school programming. With regards to the Rockefellers, 13, very important to their industrial dynasty. John D. Rockefeller bought up all the refineries in Cleveland, creating a company that the world had never seen in one of the most profit-generating industries the world has ever seen, oil. His company was Standard Oil, and just look at the gematria of Standard Oil. 117, like the United States of America, like Central Intelligence Agency, like 13 also. There's a big overlap in our nation's history between government and big business. If you go back more than a century, our politicians were on the record saying that America is a society of consumers, and all that matters is consumerism, keeping these people occupied with consumerism, keeping them chasing dollars, trying to stay afloat. Money, government, big industry, they all have control over the masses, and they all truly are one. I wouldn't be surprised at all if all along Standard Oil and the Rockefellers have been government agents. So anyhow, we're establishing the significance of 13. John D. Rockefeller in history died on May 23rd. May 23rd, 5/23 as we write it in the US. 523 is the 99th prime. Now we're talking about Richard Rockefeller dying the day after David Rockefeller's 99th birthday. So his full name, Richard Rockefeller, was Richard Gilder Rockefeller, which sums to 136. And his plane crashed on June 13th, which in most parts of the world is written 13/6, a lot like 136. If you listened to my radio show last night, I was talking about the passing of Michael Jordan's father in 93, 33 days after he won his third NBA Finals. NBA Finals equals 33. His father's name summed to 237. Michael Jordan's father died on July 23rd, 23/7. We see this again and again, these ritualistic deaths where the name syncs perfectly with the date. His full name also had gematria of 226, a number related to 93. When you write out 226, it sums to 93. The name David Rockefeller equals 93. Where this man's plane crashed, Richard Rockefeller was Harrison, New York, having gematria of 93. 93, 39, very important numbers in the history of New York. I want to take you back to this cover with David Rockefeller from April 3rd, 67, the 93rd day of the year. This article was about his project, the World Trade Centers, which were about to get under construction. The World Trade Centers were bombed in 93 on 2/26, February 26. We were just talking about how 226 sums to 93. The World Trade Centers were David Rockefeller's project. Look at this. If you get this magazine cover, that you can find this online too. If you zoom in on his wristwatch, the hands are on the 9 and the 11. This article had a lot to do with his project, the World Trade Centers that were about to be built in New York, the city skyline behind him. Anyhow, April 3rd, the day of that cover, was the 93rd day of the year. Again, the name David Rockefeller equals 93. Not only was it the 93rd day of the year, but in 1967, it was a date with 93 numerology. And again, about the World Trade Centers that would be bombed in 93. The building that now stands where the World Trade Centers were is called One World Trade Center, 93. So anyhow, just establishing the significance of 93, it was relevant to this death of Richard Rockefeller the day after David Rockefeller's 99th birthday. And if you go back and read the 9/11 Commission report, Flight AA-11, that hit the World Trade Centers, the first one on September 11th, the 11th day of the 9th month, New York, the 11th state. September 11th, the day that leaves 111 days left in the year. The first flight reportedly hit floors 93 through 99. The exact numbers we're talking about here with Richard Rockefeller. These are special numbers, 93 and 99. Also, if you can comprehend this real quick, from the date of the 93 World Trade Center bombing to the date of September 11th, 2001 was 3,119 days. And 3,119 is the 444th prime number. That number represents Masonic, connected to killing, connected to death and destruction. Go through my videos, see what I've documented about 444 in history. The distance and dates from the 93 World Trade Center bombing to September 11th, 3,119 days, the 444th prime. And in that span of days, 311, David Rockefeller proposed the World Trade Centers on March 11th, 1961. Remember the tribute in light, the giant purple beams in New York City after September 11th? That began March 11th, 2002. It was done for 33 nights, March 11th. 3,119, the distance and dates. 119 can also express the date September 11th. 11/9 as it's written in most parts of the world. The day the towers came down. The day they were proposed. The day they came down. Doing things by the numbers. Rockefeller family. Freemasonry. Understand all of this is bigger than the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers are just part of the New World Order, which is a Masonic alliance. Freemasonry, based in esoteric ancient knowledge, that's what gematria is. This is what we're looking at. So David Rockefeller, 93, the World Trade Centers, the death of Richard Rockefeller. Hopefully this is all making sense. We were talking about Saturn being the keeper of time. I should mention that Saturn in Francis Bacon gematria sums to 119. 93 World Trade Center bombing. Comes down on September 11th, Saturn, the keeper of time. We just saw the death of the blind sheik. The blind sheik, that was a story from February, the 49th day of the year. The man blamed for plotting the 93 World Trade Center bombing. If you missed my video on the death of the blind sheik, the FBI put out an article in 2006 about how when he died, we might see the next 9/11. Blind sheik responsible for the 93 World Trade Center bombing. Think about it. The word propaganda also has this gematria of 93, and that's absolutely what it is. Propaganda planned by the numbers. And just real quick, in case you didn't know, the World Trade Centers were 110 stories tall. The name Rockefeller, gematria of 110. These other numbers are all very relevant too. Just so you know, with the K exception, 65, like the age of death for Richard Rockefeller, dying 144 days after his 65th birthday. But the World Trade Center is 110 stories tall. Osama bin Laden blamed for the attack. World Trade Centers 1 and 2 were 110 stories tall. Building 7, which fell 8 hours later, was 47 floors tall. Each floor 47,000 square feet. It was known as the Solomon Brothers Building. Solomon Brothers Building. Actually, Truth Seeker, there's a mistake in there. It's beside the point. I know that's not the right gematria. The official name is something close to the Solomon Brothers something, but the reason I want you to know about that is because there's these major parallels between Solomon's Temple and the World Trade Center. Building 7 had the Solomon name on it. Notice World Trade Center, the reflection of Solomon's Temple. Again, in Jewish history, they celebrate the destruction of the 2 temples. The destruction of the 2 temples. Whoops, I didn't want Jewish reduced. I wanted Jewish gematria. The destruction of the 2 temples to the Jewish faith is known as Tisha B'Av, which equals 911. Think about how the 2 towers came down on September 11th, planned and coordinated by the numbers. And then think about how they blamed it on Iraq and started a needless war there. Iraq's 185. The destruction of Solomon's Temple was blamed first on the Babylonians, which is where Iraq is. What we are living out in this world are rituals based in ancient biblical history, Freemasonry based in the Old Testament, this history of the destruction of the 2 temples, first by the Babylonians, then by the Romans. All roads truly lead to ancient history. And right after we invaded Iraq, the news stories were that all their museums were looted and lots of biblical history was lost. I bet you anything the world elite stole it. You know? But this is what's going on. Solomon's Temple, the Solomon Brothers building, propaganda based in history. The name Richard Rockefeller and the Francis Bacon method also has 223 coding, the number of the Masons, also the number of the Synagogue of Satan, the false Jews, number we talk about an awful lot. This past March 22nd, 22/3, major Masonic ritual in London, big red helicopter with Freemasons of London on the side, the Freemason compass and square. Again, the Freemasons believe in order out of chaos, divide and conquer. This is an old world gang that went sinister at the elite level and now rules over the masses using this ancient esoteric knowledge. Not what it was intended for. So just a few more points. Again, we were talking about Standard Oil, the CIA, David Rockefeller's last birthday. There was the false flag shooting in Orlando that was the worst loss of life since September 11th. It came right after Donald Trump. It came right after Donald Trump was in Orlando calling for legitimized torture. Donald Trump said we need to legitimize torture in Orlando as a means of getting information to keep us safe. He also called for stop and frisk. Anyway, right after that, we got the terrorist attack in Orlando. And I just want to remind you, the United States of America, 144, like corporation, like Orlando, Florida, like false flags for military agenda, because that's what this nation is. A military dictatorship. It's about profit over people. It's about killing for profit. You know, it's tyranny for profit. So anyway, Orlando, Florida, the false flag was on David Rockefeller's 101st birthday. Did you know that on the day he died at 101, David Rockefeller, Donald Trump's youngest son, Barron, turned 11? 11 in the Kabbalah ciphers is related to 101. Plus you just drop the 0, it looks like 11. There's this really interesting mural that people know about in Charlotte, which is the banker capital of the United States. If you didn't know, Charlotte is the second richest city in the United States, despite being a small city, only behind New York, because all the banks are headquartered there. There's so much wealth in New York. At the Bank of America Tower, there's this very interesting painting. Shows a solar eclipse. We're supposed to see one of those later this year, August 21st. If I'm not mistaken, check out my video on the eclipse coming. But this painting with the blonde boy, you know, I'm almost wondering if it could be Barron Trump now. You know, was a foretold thing, this big year, his father becoming the president, the death of David Rockefeller at 101 on his 11th birthday, 11 the master number. Something going on here. So again, John D. Rockefeller, this powerful figure from the past, you know, more powerful than Donald Trump, but Donald Trump's seen as this powerful man in the present. Donald Trump has been getting the number 523 coded next to him for going on 2 years in the news. And along the way, we learned about this satanic gematria cipher, which sums to 523. We've been talking about 523 and Donald Trump so much. Now we look at the death of John D. Rockefeller on May 23rd. You know, 523, the 99th prime. There's something bigger going on here. Perhaps Donald Trump is a relative, you know, in blood of the Rockefellers. Wouldn't be surprising at all. The Rockefellers highly connected to the presidency. Donald Trump now a president. Donald Trump becoming president just before the symbolic passing of David Rockefeller. So we're being ruled over by families, you know, fraternity, elites. Let's not forget that Standard Oil has the gematria of 101, you know, in regards to David Rockefeller, the ancestor of John D. Rockefeller, passing at 101. A few other important numbers coded into this family I want to show you before we go. John D. Rockefeller himself died at age 97. Death equals 97. Very interesting that in 1997, Notorious B.I.G. died by the number 97. Then Jay-Z became famous with his label called Rockefeller Records, blowing up in 97. Rockefeller Records 97. You know, John D. Rockefeller dead at 97. John D. Rockefeller's full name was John Davison Rockefeller. Speaking of 119 and the Rockefellers and September 11th, David Rockefeller's bank was called Chase Manhattan Corporation. Just so many mind-blowing things. So I'll link all this information below. I'll link the playlist. We've covered this in other videos. I know it's a lot of information, so I like to be somewhat repetitive just to help people, keep it all in store. But at the same time, I know people only have an attention span for so much. So the blog posts are linked below if you need to go over the information. The playlist is linked below. Amazing. It's amazing what gematria can reveal, When this person tipped me off here at Digital Broadcast about this, in just seconds, I saw the 99 thing. I said, how about that? 99 named gematria dead right after the 99th birthday. But then you look deeper and you find the same recurring patterns. I mean, how many people have I covered on this channel dying 144 days from their birthday? It's incredible. And then 144 weeks before the death of David Rockefeller. Just, All right, Truth Seeker, until next time.